At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Here in Greenville County, we have 8 different places where a 911 call can be answered.
It is the largest county in South Carolina. It's a challenge.
The type of information that a telecommunicator gets from Radius Plus is location-based technology. You can see where the caller is, if they have a medical issue, if they speak a different language. They're immediately able to text to that caller in their native language. It reduces response times because it immediately gets first responders where they need to be.
Carbyne, it's multimedia. You can get text, translate to whatever language, getting away with the legacy equipment and going into a cloud-based solution.
It's the first time in U.S. history that we have an EZNet through cloud-native call handling.
As a police officer, to have the victim go video, that's unheard of.
You're getting upgrades every month, not every year.
To schedule your free Carbyne demo, please visit carbyne.com/WTT.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital Rapid Deploy as well as Carbyne, and this is a Carbyne exclusive episode. A big shout out to patrons as always. Thank you so very much for everything. We've got a lot of new bonus content that's coming up. We're also well into conference season. We've got National NINA that's coming up, National APCO, and a lot of state conferences in between and after going into the fall. And then there is a big announcement that's going to be coming up here in the next couple of weeks, so make sure to look out for that. If you have seen the all of the pictures that are in black and white with people showing a number 4, and also a TikTok out there with the song in the background from Daft Punk saying "one more time," some people have kind of put it together, but you'll see soon enough. So make sure to check that out. Again, in a couple of weeks, there'll be a big announcement coming out. So I am excited for today, for this episode. I have my buddy who's going to be coming on here, and his name is Cody Post. He's the executive director at the Red Center out of Ohio. What up?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing all right, man. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Excellent. You've been on once or twice now, maybe? Or
Yeah.
maybe we did a webinar or something and you were on a panel. I don't know. I'm trying to remember now, but I know we've done other things together and stuff. And then most recently, at the Ohio conference, I saw you out there. It's funny, I was going to the conference just to kind of spectate, really, and support my good friend Sarah Weston, who was doing the keynote there, the executive director and founder of 911 Wonder Women Inc. And then I'd gotten a message from you. You had to back out of one of the sessions and stuff, but I wasn't going to be able to do it because I couldn't. You had asked, if I wanted to fill in some time or anything. I was like, I'm not going to be there until the following day, man. It won't be any time. But then someone else from the conference got a hold of me, and they're like, we still have one more. Is there any way you can do it? And I said, well, if there's any way to do it like on a Wednesday morning, I might be able to do it. And within like 20 minutes, man, it was just so fast. They're like, all right, you're in. I was like, okay. I was like, well, that's awesome. Because it's one, the first time I'm going to be at an Ohio conference, and two, the first time doing Imagine Listening there. And man, it was an excellent, excellent time. You guys, I have to give you props because you put a lot into the conference. And for the time that I was there, it was a lot of fun, and it felt like family, man. Like you just went in and everyone was so super nice. It was really good. So Ohio conference, excellent stuff, dude. Well done.
I would do our conference and the people that put it together some injustice if I didn't say that that conference and that experience is solely because of the people that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making it happen, and probably the reason because it took 20 minutes is because that is actually a really small group of people. Our conference chairwoman Rose Chambers has been doing it for years.
Mhm.
He almost has it down to a mad science, to the point where she books our stay in our conference 2 years in advance with
Oh.
Kalahari. So they do an amazing job. I'm kind of the interloper. Just got involved in APCO Nina not really that long ago. I mean, it's
Mhm.
been years now, but in retrospect of how much time they put in, it's I'm a freshman. So they make it like that. They make it that family atmosphere where you could come from anywhere in the state for the first time being at that conference, and you feel like part of the team, part of the club, part of the Ohio 9-1 club. So it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man, and especially at the Kalahari. I mean, you can't go wrong. It's a good spot, and walking in and seeing families and everyone running and stuff. And Jana was there, and she walked up right away, and I was kind of out of it. Like I was driving and driving, and then I got there. And she was the first person I saw. Came out, give me a big old hug, and she's like, "Registration's there. We're gonna have dinner over here. You should come and join us." And yeah, man, it was all good. So I look forward of having the opportunity of going back, because that was an excellent time. So I want to learn more about you. Now I did mention that I've had you on an episode before, and but the episode that we did was specifically for a couple different stories, and I think there were what, like 5 or 6 people on there.
Yeah,
And
the first one
I
was 3, then 5. It's been a lot.
Yeah, and I was trying to give each person a moment to kind of share their background and stuff, but I want to dig a little deeper into your story because I know we only had so much time to talk about each person. So, you've been doing this for about 16 years now, but going back in time, reflecting on your time in public safety, like how did you get started to begin with? Do you come from a public safety family, or you just kind of dive into it?
Uh, Not really. I mean, yes and no. I don't. None of my parents were in public safety. I mean, my dad worked for an electric company his entire
Hmm.
career, the local electric company to where I grew up. I got into this because my high school friend was an explorer through the Boy Scouts at the fire station where I live,
Hmm.
and we worked together uh, maintaining baseball fields. And he's like, "You want to come?" I'm sure I'll go to Explorers, and I did that for 4 years. So I was at the fire station once a week for 4 years. Well, mostly once a week for 4 years, and we got to do fun stuff. They let us go on calls that weren't so serious, like grass
Hmm.
fires and stuff like that, where there wasn't lots of blood and mayhem going on. Um, and then I decided that's what I kind of wanted to get into was public
Hmm.
safety. Went to EMT school the last 3 months of high school. Uh, Me, him, and one other friend went to the local career center twice a week at night, basically adult night school, to get EMT cards in the state of Ohio because you only had to be 18 to take the test. So as they let us take the class as long as we were 18 by the time the test came, and it's kind of history. We took the test, we took the class, took the test, and uh, like the week and a half after I graduated high school, I had an EMT card and I was working for the fire department that I had been an explorer with, and then spent that summer getting a fire certification. And that was kind of the launch pad where it started. And ironically, I wanted to get a job, and there was a guy on the department that worked for a local ambulance company. He's like, come work for us. But I didn't know they didn't let you on the ambulance until you were 21. I was 18. It was an insurance thing. He's like, you could drive a wheelchair van. Like, I don't really want to drive a wheelchair van. I don't want to be like a special taxi driver. No,
Mhm.
no disrespect to the people that do that job. I just want
Right.
what I wanted to do. So I found out they paid their dispatchers a little bit more money than their EMT basics on the wheelchair van. So I'm like, well, I'll go do that. Did that for 2.5 years, 2 years, really, and then got into 911. Wanted to go into 911, and a position opened, and I applied. It took like 13 months for me to go through the hiring process.
What?
Oh, it was crazy. From the time I applied to the time they hired me. And then I was the young kid that asked way too many questions in training. I always say, like, you never wanted to train me as a new person in 911. I wanted to know why for everything. And more than once they got frustrated. They're like, because I said so. I'm like, I get it, right?
Right.
And started working at a small police department. Well, not small first compared to some. Like they had 22 or 25 officers, three positions in the dispatch center. They merged, not merged, but they brought another police agency into their dispatch center. We kind of worked jointly with them, and they were in the same room, and they handled their agency, we handled ours, and then eventually it kind of merged together into a big melting pot for 5 years. And then it became a consolidated center after that. And they brought in another community and we moved locations. And became a shift supervisor and worked as a shift supervisor for a little bit. And then a friend of mine, who I really only knew through like calling him on the phone at the next jurisdiction over, because we covered I-76 in Ohio, and our jurisdiction was right next to theirs, and we had the same CAD system. And for a long time, you could send chat messages from us to them, and calling them on the phone. A friend of mine named Michael Banks was like, "Hey, do you want to come work with me down in Worcester? I'm the new director down here. They're gonna create a big center." And I had spent a lot of time at the center I was at in Summit County, just like uh, kind of trying to consolidate practices.
Mhm.
We had a group of people before we created the first consolidated place I worked at, where we were meeting once a week, trying to like make sure we talk the same language, the same codes, the radio, the CAD, our processes, just trying to iron everything out, so that it wasn't just utter mayhem when we had to sit in the same room, and we could kind of make sure we were speaking the same language. So he knew I had a good history on that. And he also knew that I knew the CAD product that we used really, really well, kind of backwards and forwards. So he's like, hey, would you come work down here in Worcester? And I applied and they hired me. I was the last person they brought on board to a place that they were basically creating from scratch. So new facility, new employees, stuff like that. And ironically, this is where the one session I was going to present at Kalahari was going to talk about this experience. I went to work there, and we started like at the end of May, and we were just training and learning the one small agency that had a dispatch center. Those dispatchers were coming over to the new center, so we were working with them, learning their police agency. So it was like one less thing we had to learn after we opened. Eventually, in early July, I was promoted to the operations supervisor. and we opened July 7th. I got promoted July 18th. Um, and I was the director's number two. I was supposed to make sure everybody knew what they were doing, kind of help him develop policies and procedures, massage the schedule, work a desk more or less at the same time while we brought all these agencies in. Uh, we brought our first two agencies on board July 7th of 2016, and we quickly realized that we needed more time.
Mm-hmm.
The last community that was in a different county was going to come on board, and we needed more time to figure our stuff out. We had to finish a couple radio projects, cement our technology really well, finish installing desks. So we pushed that date till about August, late August 2016. He's teaching me like I've never been an operations supervisor before, so I'm learning my job. We're figuring out how we're going to train these people because 60% of the people that got hired had never been a dispatcher before. They all had come from like the pockets of public safety. Like we had a couple corrections officers, we had a handful of fire and EMS people,
Mm-hmm.
and we had three people that like this was their first public safety job. So we were teaching them how to do it on the fly, and it was going really well. We just needed more time. So he's finishing literally constructing this place from the walls to the drywall, including the people, all the technology, all the computers, literally everything you could think of. This guy has spent the last year and a half, 2 years building from the ground up. Figuratively, obviously, he's not a construction guy, but so we bring on the last agency. It's like the end of August. We're doing okay. We're figuring things out. September rolls around. We get to the almost the end of September, the week of the 25th, 26th, and he and I are supposed to go to a meeting with our CAD vendor, the big users meeting about an hour-ish north of where we were. He decided he had to go to the office first to pick something up, and he was just going to meet me at our meeting. And he's an avid motorcycle guy, loves
Mm-hmm.
riding motorcycles. He's riding to work down a 2-lane country highway, and he stops in a line of cars because I think there was a school bus in front of him or somebody making a left. I don't remember. And a 16-year-old kid in a 2500 truck comes over the hill behind him, full speed, 65 miles an hour, and hits him on his motorcycle.
Oh,
And
man.
that pushes him off the road. He gets attached to the car in front of him that just goes careening out of the way. We were going to show you pictures of the crash site because, ironically, there was an OSP airplane
Mm-hmm.
right in that area. So that pilot actually took photographs of the crash site from the airplane. And that was the day I became the interim director. Mike, God bless him, he's an awesome guy. He survived the crash. He was really severely injured. His upper body shattered his shoulders. He went through a long recovery. So my plan was I was going to be the interim director till he got back to work. And I went to our meeting. They took him to a trauma center. I went to our meeting, and then I went to the trauma center they took him to because I wanted to see him.
Right.
And he's laying on the gurney telling me, I'll be back to work, Cody, in like 2 weeks. I'll be okay in 2 weeks. And at this point, I had went to paramedic school in 2010. It's 2016. I very well understand what's going on here. And I'm looking down at him in the bed of the trauma center. I'm like, hey, Mike, I don't think it's going to be 2 weeks. I think it's going to be longer than that. I'm like, you're kind of messed up. So I was the interim director for 382 days to a center that I literally knew nothing about. And I remember this moment, like every day I went to work, it was another situation where I learned something new or I was confronted with a problem I didn't know how to solve. And this one instance really just strikes me. We had just went to this brand new statewide radio system that'd been around for years, but it was first time our county was using it. So we had these really fancy radios. We had this whole new system, this whole new infrastructure with microwave and fiber optics that I didn't know squat about. The guy's name was Dave Peterson. He was a really great guy, but he's the project manager for Motorola. He walks in and hands me the final acceptance paper, and we owe them a check for $545,000.
Oh man.
And he hands it to me, and I'm like, no. It'd been like 2 weeks since Mike's accident. I get this paper. I like had went through Mike's desk, so I found like punch lists for things, and like I knew kind of where certain things were, but I couldn't even really spell Marks or how Marks is the system we were connecting to, or a lot of the devices we were having to deal with.
Yeah.
So I had to drink from a fire hose, and thankfully there were people that really helped me out. The IT department for the city of Worcester was a godsend to me. Those folks were amazing. Our radio vendor at the time, they the local radio shop, they have a technician. His name is Rich. He's been there forever, and he was so gracious. He taught me everything I needed to know. He came in all the time to check on us to see how we were doing, and I got to ask him questions. So I worked there, got my education on all of that stuff over that year. They brought in a new director, and she was with us for almost a whole year. She left to do something else, and then I was again just hanging out as the operations supervisor while a fire chief was filling the role of director while they figured out what they wanted to do. I got my RPL during that time. I got my EMP during that time because I just needed to know more and more and more and more and more about
Right.
how to be a director. And then I applied right before the Baltimore APCO show. I applied for this job, and I came back and did the interviews. And every time I get interviewed, I'm like, oh, they're done with me. That was terrible. I didn't say this right. Uh, they then offered me the job. So that's how I kind of got to the director's job. But I started, in 2008, I started on the line answering the phone and, doing the job of a 911 dispatcher. And it was fun because, I was really young, and I worked with a lot of young people, and I was on midnights for a long time and afternoons. And when I was in medic school, I kept my full-time job and did the overtime and worked the schedule like I was everybody else, but went to school on the off hours. And
Mhm.
I think you've said it before. I really don't like the question of like, what's the worst call you've ever taken. I like the what's the funniest call you've ever taken.
Yeah.
Um, I always remember a 911 call where my partner got the first call, and we were working on it, and we had this trailer park in the one community that we got called to all the time. It was right next to a bowling alley with a bar, so people would just walk over, get hammered, and then walk home and fight with each other over nonsensical things.
Right. Yeah.
We got a 911 call, and it was just an open line call, and there's like this full on fight going on in the background. It's like listening to like WWE SmackDown, and the only thing you hear is like the sound from the ring. It was funny to me. That sounds terrible, right? It was funny to me because it turns out that the brother that was beating up the other brother was a double bilateral knee amputee. So he didn't have any legs. And he was using his prosthetic legs to beat up his other brother. And
What?
yes, that's what just made it funny and weird and ironic at the same time. And the officers, call out with one in custody. And then they called him out to the jail with the suspect, his prosthetic legs, and his wheelchair. Like, what? And we had cameras so we could see the booking area for that department. And by golly, they got him out of the car, and we're all just like, this is new. we just had this big domestic, and it's two brothers, and the suspect has no legs. And
Wow.
handicapped people are very capable people, but you
Right.
don't get calls of them assaulting people, right?
True. Yeah.
And, it's like it just was shocking to me that that was the situation.
Wow. Yeah, that's so I remember when I first moved back to Southwest Michigan, and I had started at the county central dispatch in Allegan, the county that I grew up in, okay? And I was on I think it was my second ride along, because we had to have two with the state and then two with the county. And so this was the first one, and with the county, that is. And a couple things happened that time. It was the first time that I ever heard the term yard bird. Never heard that before. We had already gone to a couple calls, and the deputy I was with says, "Hey man," he goes, "Are you ready to get some dinner?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, well, I can get something." And he goes, "All right, cool." He goes, "How about some yard bird?" And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Yard bird." And I said, "Yard bird?" He goes, "Yard bird." I was like, "Yard bird?" I was like, "What the hell is that?" And he goes, "Chicken, dude, chicken." And I was like, "Oh." So I will never forget that. And sometimes when I see him, I bring that story up because it's so funny. And but that the first call that we went out to was a malicious destruction of property, MDOP. And we get out there, and I'm standing out there with the deputy as he's talking to the caller, and he's talking about how he believes that his yard was destroyed by his brother who is also seeing that dude's wife, like she was cheating on him with the brother. And I'm just standing there like, this is some Jerry Springer shit right here. It's like, this is crazy. And then so after that, we go we order our yard bird, and we go to sit down with some other officers that are there, and we get a tone out, and it's back to that address. So we go hop in the cruiser, and it was the first time on the highway going lights and sirens. Well, no one ever told me, "Ricardo, you need to brace yourself when you're in the vehicle." So we're like going back and forth, and I'm getting car sick because I'm like, pop on one side, pop on the other side. And and the deputy is just laughing, and he's like, "Maybe you should brace yourself." Like, "Thanks, man. I appreciate that." So we we end up getting out there, and we pull up. The original guy that we had talked to is in the driveway, and his brother is by the front door of the house with the wife. And he's yelling back and swearing at his brother and stuff. And the deputy gets out, and he walks up to the front door, and the girl pulls the brother in right away, and the deputy grabs onto him and pulls him back out and is like, "Nah, son, you're not hiding in the house." And he pulls him out, and he's just yelling and just going nuts and stuff. And the wife just doesn't want anything to do with either one of them. He ends up putting the other guy, the brother, in the back of the car with me. And then the husband, he's talking to him out there, and he comes up to the side of the window of the cruiser, and he's yelling at him, and he's like, "I got you now," and using a lot of colorful words, but he's like, "I've got you now, man." He goes, "I got you now. You destroy my family and my yard and everything. You're going to jail now." He's like, "I want to press charges." And then the brother who's sitting in back is yelling back at him, and he's saying, "Yeah, I got your girl. She's mine now," and all this other stuff. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is what happens when I'm on the other side of the line. And so they end up walking off the talk, right? And I'm sitting in the cruiser, and I hear, "Hey, man. Hey, man." I'm like, is this guy talking to me? And I'm just sitting there, and I'm trying not to laugh. And the guy goes, "Bro, I'm talking to you, man. I know you can hear me." And I turned my head back, and I said, okay." I was like, what, man? What do you need?" And he goes, "Can you let me out?" I was like, "Hell no." I was like, "I'm not gonna let you out, dude." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And he goes, "Well, my brother's over there telling his side of the story, and I just want to tell my side of the story." And I said, "The officer will be back, and you can tell him whatever you want." And I said, "But you got to wait." And he's like, starts swearing. And so the barrier that's right there that's separating us is just like plexiglass. And the guy starts slamming his head against it because he's trying to get the officer's attention. He's just like, pop, pop. And I'm moving forward each time. And I'm at this point, I'm like this with my hand over my mouth and I'm biting my finger because I'm trying not to laugh because this is hilarious. And I'm like, dude, settle down, man. And then the deputy comes back and he tells him to settle down. Well, we get in the car and we take off. And the dude ended up getting arrested for MDOP, but also for DUI because he was at this car show with the wife, his girlfriend, and he was drinking. And they found like all the open containers and everything else, giving a breathalyzer. Well, when we are going to the jail, the dude is screaming at us, and he's just screaming, "Yeah, you guys always get your man. You always get your man, don't you?" And the deputy goes, "Settle down. You just settle down, man. We're gonna be there soon." And he goes, "Yeah, you guys are the best, huh? You're the best." Just screaming, "You're the best." And the deputy goes, "Hey, don't say that. Don't say that we're the best. You got to do something really extraordinary to be the best. I'd say we're about top 3." It was the most hilarious thing, man. But the dude ended up quieting down afterwards. He ends up saying, "Yeah," he goes, "Well, you know what? I'm just going to shut up now. I'm not going to say anything else." And we're like, "Yeah, that's probably a good idea." Well, when we got to the jail, we walk in and he's riled up all over again. And they take his cuffs off when we're inside. They're booking him. And then he just like starts crying. And then everyone else who's in the drunk tank, they're watching him. And they start like heckling him. They're like, "Just wait till you get in here." And we're like, "Oh my gosh."
I mean, you know what? That's like the one thing about this. Like, I was really lucky, I think now, because when I worked at a small police department,
Mhm.
they had holding cells that they only held people for a couple hours. They
Yeah.
either went to the municipal courthouse to jail there, or if it was a felony, they went to the county jail at the sheriff's office. So we like as dispatchers, there was a little button on the wall that the prisoners could push if they
Mhm.
need something and talk to us. Um, and they always thought they were talking to the police officer. It was always hilarious. But um I always really liked how like these people were talking to them on the phone, or you have to deal with them in some respect, and they're all like big and macho and they're going to come punch you, or they make some threat on the phone and they end up getting arrested. So they come to the police station and then they get put in a holding cell for a little while they get charges typed or whatever, and they always cry. Like they always like the biggest burly macho, I'm gonna break your face dude is like in the holding cell, like sobbing. And it's just like the most crazy turn of events every time. Oh,
Yeah, it is one of the most interesting things. Yes, no, I remember that fully. But also that night, as soon as he was booked, we left to a shoplifting complaint, and it just happened to be that that day was Mother's Day.
oh,
And we get to and this is going to be different for everyone who's listening to this, but in the Midwest we have a store that's like Walmart, but it's called Meijer. And this is where we went to. We went to Meijer, and I know they have those in Ohio too.
they
But
actually just built
and
one down the street from here, believe it or not.
oh yeah. So so we get there, right? And I'm sitting in the car waiting because the deputy goes, "Are you gonna go in with me?" I was like, "Do you need me to go in with you?" And he goes, "Nah, man, you can just wait here." And I was like, "All right, cool." So I'm sitting in the cruiser forever. I should have gone inside with him, but I'm waiting there, and he comes out with this guy. He had to have been in his early 20s or something. And he had the items that the dude was trying to shoplift. And the items he had
Mother's Day items.
was a fifth of Jack Daniels and a Mother's Day card. And I thought, oh, he just wanted to get something for his mama. But we ended up taking him in, and at the end of the night, the dude goes, "So what'd you think?" And I was like, I mean, that was a lot of fun. So far, every one of my ride-alongs had been kind of crazy like that. So it was a good experience and everything. But that's why I bring up the brothers thing, because you had kind of a similar story. But if so, kind of reflecting before we get to this main story, kind of reflecting back on your time. You started out in this explorers program, you went with a friend, and it kind of seems like there was a pattern a little bit where you were kind of, you were jumping in and taking these chances and everything, and these opportunities presenting themselves, right? But also you had a good support system. It sounds like a lot of people around you kind of showing you the ropes, and you stuck with it and you continued on. But what was it, do when you think back, and if you can kind of pinpoint anything, what do you think it was that really allowed that public safety blood to get, or bug rather, to get into your blood? Because a lot of people say, this is a calling, this was my calling. I knew at this point, or after a certain incident, or after a call, or maybe it was just, an earlier life experience or something, that they just knew once they got into it, like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. What was it like for you?
Um, I think it was the excitement of it. Especially as being an explorer, we got to, some of the most menial things in the world to like most, and even, I worked on a local fire department where I lived for 15 years as a paramedic firefighter. I just left in 2021. Um, and things that I would consider like just monotonous, everyday, boring stuff. When I was like 14, 15, and 16, I get to ride in a fire truck and we got to go run around a field and put out brush fire.
Yeah.
It was like cool, it was fun. I had a great time doing it. When it was just otherwise we were just training on stuff, and the sense of belonging I got as a kid in high school, like it was just a bigger family.
Mhm.
It was just a bigger, I went from having just my family to having like 25 uncles and a couple of aunts. And they, not everybody was into having teenagers run around at the fire station helping them with stuff. Not everybody was into it, but a good number of them were. And they always appreciated the fact before we were allowed to go on calls, we had to, they always were like, okay, before we let you do this, we're going to give you some insane task that you may or may not be able to complete. So we had to memorize where all the equipment was on all of the trucks. And they had like 11 fire trucks at the time. So as you can imagine, there's like stuff everywhere. Like they're like it wasn't the most organized compartments. There'd be like milk crates full of stuff, and we they're like you have to memorize it, and we would play this game of they would like say go find me this, and you'd have to go find whatever they asked for, and sometimes we only had one of it, sometimes we had five, and you could get lucky if you didn't remember. Like you might remember one out of five places it was. Uh, but we really proved our worth on one call. It was like smoke in a basement. They let us go to help out at the road, and it really wasn't anything serious. But the fire chief wanted a fan. He wanted this thing called a negative pressure fan. The department only had one of them. And they just had moved it like within a month of this call. They had moved where it was. None of the firemen could find it. They're all like running around, opening these compartments of these trucks, like looking for it. And they're like, oh, my buddy and I'm like, we know exactly where this fan is. So we went and pulled it off and kind of proved that, hey, we kind of know what we're doing. So it was it was really the excitement and the family aspect of it. And then it became normal for me. It's like anybody that does any job, the 9 to 5ers. I got used to it, and it became, especially be working in the fire service. It just kind of became something I was used to, and I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed helping people. I'm kind of a very personable person. I like, you know, when I worked in the ambulance and was doing patient care, like I could talk to anybody about anything and make them and help them calm down and
Mhm.
just relax and have a good time. I mean, not a good time, but an easier time going to
Right, yeah.
the ambulance, or on 911 calls. I had this uncanny ability to just like chill people out and get them help and get them to talk to me. It didn't work every time. I think we've all been hung up on or cussed out, or every card you pull out of your calming people down deck doesn't seem to work.
Yes, yeah,
It just
for
makes you
sure.
more angry. So like I think the one thing is just not is just the excitement of it kind of got me sucked in, and then it's all I've kind of known. Like if I had to go work a 9 to 5 job, I'd probably be bored. Um,
Right. Yes. Yeah. I've heard a lot of people say that. They end up leaving public safety, and they end up coming back after like a year or two because it's not the same. And some of them, they end up doing other things that kind of have that it's hard to say kind of have the same adrenaline rush, because there's nothing like 911. There's nothing like public safety, really.
yeah,
Maybe like in a trauma center, or emergency room or
yeah,
something, but otherwise, a lot of times people go to a 9 to 5 and they end up coming back because they're like, I miss it that much. I had the time away, and now I'm back. Being away helped, but also allowed me to appreciate the job that I once had, and that camaraderie, and just all of it combined. And and like they end up coming back and everything, and that's amazing. That's good. It's good to go take a break and then come back if you want to come back, or stay gone, doing something out of public safety or being on the private side. It's okay. A lot of times I think something that people struggle with, when they're thinking about the next chapter in their career, is leaving the folks that they worked with because they feel bad. For example, like me, when I decided to leave to the private side of 911 for a while there, um, I felt bad. I felt like I was betraying my crew, like I was betraying my people and stuff. And then finally, after thinking about it and everything, realizing that I would be helping out dispatchers from everywhere doing what I was doing, not only through the private side of the work that I was doing with them, but because the company that I was working for found me through the podcast and they continued to support it. And now it's what I do full time. But I think that's one of the things that people struggle with, and it's okay. It's okay to leave. It's okay to come back. It's okay to stay. Everything is okay.
that's
So I
yeah.
want to I want to look at kind of segue into this call, this story. So I want you to kind of take me through this. We've got a video that we're going to show here in a moment as well, but this was kind of a water rescue, right? Type call that came in. How did it all come about?
So ironically, what this call is, early February, 2022, Ohio, like in January, December, January, February, Ohio was having these like wicked, crazy snowstorms where we all felt, I think, well, personally, I felt like I moved to Buffalo, New York, where astronomical snow depth is normal. And it had like 3 snowstorms right in a row. And one of them put like a foot of snow on the ground. The next one put like 8 inches of snow on the ground. I don't have a big snow blower, but like I've never in my life used my snow blower and the snow was deeper than my snow blower was tall by a lot.
Oh man.
So it's February. We had this huge amount of snow on the ground. It was raining. My center, like every center around, I think it's almost every center. Staffing shortages are a way of life. We were shorthanded. We had been doing water rescues over this weekend, this week where this happened. My folks were doing water rescues. It felt like 3, 4, 5 times a day. And I was like just trying to help out. So I worked a shift. And in our center, fire and police are split.
Mhm.
We have, I say split, but they're not. My people could do both jobs, but there's 2 desks that primarily do fire and EMS, the rest do police. And I was in the fire room, and they've been doing water rescues like crazy. And this call came in, and uh, I did not know where they were. I'll be the first person to tell you that When it comes to geography, I kind of have to go drive it to really understand how it works and where people are, or like spend a lot of time on a map. And
Mhm.
these people were in the middle of nowhere, in my opinion, and I didn't know where the road was. I wasn't familiar with the river or the creek they were over. I would say it's a creek. At this point, it probably looked like a river. Um, and I'm like, okay, we have tools for this, right? We have Rapid SOS. We had Carbyne. Um, she wasn't on 911, and this is the thing that kind of hosed me.
Mhm.
She is close enough to our southern county border that her 911 call went to another county, and we don't have next gen EZNets here in Ohio
Mhm.
yet. But so the Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Office transfers me the call information, but they don't have the caller on the phone anymore. It's just there's a car in floodwater. They're stuck. They need help. Here's their phone number. They couldn't get me the caller. They could just get me the information. Um, so I have the caller's phone number. I call her back on just an admin line, basically. I throw the phone number in Carbyne, hit go. Uh, while I'm talking to her, and I say, "Hey, I just sent you a text message. I need to try to figure out where you are." She tells me what road she's on, but she doesn't, and it's in between two not big, but two intersections. And again, not being familiar, I need help. And throw the number in, tell her to click the link. On the map, I tone out the fire department that's responsible, I think, for that area. It ended up being right on a border, so it was like a coin flip of who I was going to send. I
Mhm.
tone out the fire department, and this application, I can get video with her. And Fireman Cody is right here, director, dispatcher trainer. I'm like, vehicles in water, people in vehicles in water are like the worst calls 911 dispatchers can get because they either go really well or they go really bad. And I've heard more than my fair share of 911 tapes of people in cars in floodwater that go horrible because
Right.
they're focused too much on the location and not like get out of the car. So I was like debating on telling her and her young daughter, I'm like, okay, we're going to talk. We talked about getting out of the car. Like, are they safe? I know it's in water, but is the car moving? And I got her to turn on the video, take the link and turn on the video because I wanted to see what she saw. And I thought, I have two options here: get out of the car, stay in the car. Help is going to be a little while because they're around all volunteer fire departments. There's no police close to her. So I wanted to make sure if I tell her to get out of the car, I didn't want her to get swept away.
Mhm.
Because as soon as she gets out of the car, if there's no help there, it's over. If they stay in the car and the car gets swept away, it's over. Um, so the fireman part of me was like, I want to see what you're around. And she clicks on the video that you'll show here in a second. And I got a lot more comfortable because I saw what she was around. I saw the water. She's in the water, but the car isn't really in danger of getting swept away at this point because there were guardrails on both sides of the road that were still visible. Her truck wasn't moving at all,
Mhm.
reported, and she was actually stuck between two big stands of trees, and the big open water area was behind her. It's like she drove in it and she made it like 80% of the way through.
Oh, man. Yeah, yeah. Looking at because I've got some notes here, and it looks like what had been typed in as well as there's a foot of water in the vehicle actually at that time, and it's kind of giving the location, how many people are there, and like you said, the vehicle and stuff. But vehicle is stuck east of the bridge in flood water. So I'm gonna play this here. It's just a little bit of it, just so that people can see and for those who are listening right now as well, we'll just kind of talk through this a little bit. But so this is the video from there, and this is good. This shows right there. Look at all that.
Yeah, water as far as you can see, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's a split second there where you can see the road in front of her go up over a hill. And I was trying to explain to her what we were doing. So a lot of this video is of the roof of her car or of her daughter. But like right there in the foreground is a little bit of the road, but there's water in all directions. There's water behind her. As you can kind of tell, you guys don't have the times in front of you, but this started at like 6:08 p.m. Eastern time. So in the video, it's getting dark. You can see the
Mhm.
sun setting behind the car. So
Right.
very quickly, if we, this is going to become nighttime on us. I'm thinking all these things, right? She's in a red pickup truck, and there's 12 minutes, like you said, of the video, and I keep asking her over and over and over again to stick her hand or like show me the water with your phone, show me around you, because I want to see, is the water getting higher? Can we see less of the road in front of her? Is her position changing? And She basically is kind of in a little ravine where this creek is, and there's woods on all sides of the car. There's woods on the other side of the creek. And I say creek, but as you can see the video, there's literally water everywhere.
Yeah, right there. You can.
You can't even see the road behind her. There's so much water there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
and we got the fire department on the way as within 20 seconds, right? We're dispatching the fire department. 20-25 seconds, the tones are dropping before we even start talking to her, or seeing this video. Obviously, that's the priority. But that's when I made the decision not to tell her to get out of the car,
Mhm.
because in that video, the road is really far away. There's no land mass around her other than some guardrails and trees. So if I get her out of the car, I can't even tell her to swim for it because it looks really, really far away.
Right. Yeah.
So if you stay with the car and it's not going anywhere, as long as we can, you're not going to get tired and drowned. You're not going to get swept away. The truck's not moving. And that was kind of the thought process in that. And I'll tell you, if I didn't have the video, I don't know what decision I would have made to what to tell her what to do, because we train everybody, vehicle and floodwater, get out of the car, because if the car
Right.
and you're stuck inside, um, you're not going to probably survive. Now we did do some things that in the call, we made sure the windows were down, we made sure the doors were unlocked, so if we had to get her out of the car, and she had her daughter with her that I think was like between 7 and 10 years old, so we made sure seatbelts off, doors are able to be opened, unlocked, windows down, all the windows are down. So if we had to make that exit strategy happen, we had the ability for it to go as good as it could have.
Right. Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so later in the video, the fire department is responding, and like I said, it's a rural area. The fire department's volunteer. It takes them a long time to get there. Some important things that I liked from finding their location in the video was we knew what side of the creek to send the fire department to, because it's a country mile, or a country block. For those that don't know what that is, it's basically, it would have been like a 3-mile loop to drive from one side to the other. So sending them to the right side of that creek in right on the first go of it was the most important.
Mhm.
So we used the location that we got from the application to tell us what side of the creek to send them to. Um, and it just turned out she kept trying to start her car at the end of the video, and it's not working, and it's not working. You and I would probably be thinking, yeah, you just drove through a freaking river. There's
Right.
no way your truck is going to start. The fire department says we're on scene, we're looking for her, and they start coming down the hill. Well, by some miracle, her truck starts. She throws the thing in drive and hits the gas. And as the fire department's coming down the hill to rescue her from the right side of the river, because we knew where she was,
Yeah.
she drives up to meet them. And, and
Man.
water's, like pouring out the truck as she's driving. But I was on the call for her for 12 minutes. I think the whole time, from the time that she called us to the time that they met with her was probably like 20 minutes. We had her on the phone. Uh, and I lament a little bit. I talked about my team, my
Hmm.
dispatchers. They were the ones doing the hard work. Like there was one dispatcher that worked a 12-hour shift. I think that team they had 4, 5, or 6 water rescues all in a row. And this is the one we get to talk about because I got video of it. But my people were doing yeoman's work that week because we were doing water rescues like the state highway patrol does traffic stops. Um,
Wow.
and this is the one where we got video of it, and they all had good outcomes. We had great outcomes across the board in all of our rescues. A credit to my people that were working and them doing their job swimmingly well. Haha. Uh,
Yeah.
and the fire department
Very nice.
the fire departments that responded, but this was one incident out of dozens that week that we captured on video and had good relatable situation. But I gotta hand it to my team that week. We were doing water rescues all the time, and they made it look easy.
Damn. Well, congratulations to your team, man, but also, to you as being, that person there, leading and everything. It comes from, your own experience, and it always ends up showing in your people. That it's one of the best things to see. And man, it's just a good feeling, right? Especially when you have technology like this that allows for certain things, because otherwise, if you think about it, if you didn't have that ability to see what was around them, it could have gone the other way. Like you were saying, we're trained and stuff in a certain way, and we tell people to leave the vehicle if they can, if it's safe. What are you looking at around you? And a lot of times we find out, and I mean it's true for a lot of things in high priority calls, that when people are calling in, obviously they're not in the best state of mind because of the emergency that they're in, and they're probably living their nightmare, right? And so some of the things that they're saying or what they're seeing isn't always what it exactly is. So to be able to see it for yourself, and then compare and contrast on what it is that they're talking about, you're not only able to help them, but it's also able to keep you calm too, because you get to see, what it looks like, and also to help make decisions, but also for those who are going out there to be able to come on, like you said, the fire department was coming on the right side where they were at and stuff. And luckily they just happened to be able to turn their vehicle on and meet the fire department up there. So it's a good outcome all the way around. This is a great story, man, because we know in 911 and a lot of other places that stories like this don't always come out good. But everything just seemed to fit for it, right? So I guess kind of going into the wrap up of this episode, we've had a chance to learn a lot about you, but also to hear about the technology that you're using out there, especially with this story that had a great outcome. When there are folks that are thinking about next generation 911, new technology for 911 and everything, if they're on the fence, specifically, let's talk about video to 911, as that's what the topic is here with this main story. What is your thought process, or what advice would you give others who are kind of on the fence when it comes to something like video to 911?
I think my response is really easy for me to say,
Hmm.
uh, especially because as an early 20s 911 dispatcher with the old positron brick phone, punching the reset button as fast as you can to get an updated latitude and longitude to throw into Google Maps.
Yes.
Uh, just do it. Just take the chance. Embrace the technology and do what you need to do, because every tool that you put in your dispatch center's toolbox is one more tool that can save somebody's life.
Yes.
And listen, 2022, we all have more tools in our toolbox than we ever could imagine. Some of us have more than others.
Yep.
I feel myself lucky that we have these tools here. Um, Take the tool, put it in your toolbox, work it for a year. Um, as a director, I'm really acutely aware of change management and your team like not really embracing change right away or not embracing a new tool right away. But as they have it longer, they get used to it. Put the tool in place, give it to them, put it in their hands, let them work it. If it doesn't work after a year, it doesn't help you. It doesn't do what you think it's going to do. You can always turn it off or leave the contract or go some other direction. But this tool, we do not use this tool enough. I will be the first person to tell you, we do not use this enough. Uh, we should use it more. But when we have used it, it's helped us. When other agencies in our counties have used it, it has helped them to do things that they wouldn't have been able to do without it. So, Video to 911, my first appearance on your podcast was to talk about the mental health impacts of this kind of technology. What kind of impact is that going to have on the dispatcher, the call taker, and really one of the things that we identified in that panel was sometimes our imagination is worse than reality.
Right.
And sometimes it's not as bad as the caller makes us think it is. So that video can kind of give us the opportunity to say, hey, is this as bad as they're saying? Or is it the flip side? Is it worse than they're saying? And not do we not need to send one fire truck? Do we need to send 10? Do we not need to send one police officer? Do we need to send 10? And I'll be the first person to tell you, with little kids, my daughter's about to turn 3. That completely changed my perspective on this job. If you don't want to watch the video, or the video goes a direction that you don't want to be witnessing it, you don't have to watch it.
Right.
You can send the link to the video to your responders. They can see it while they're responding. They can look at it on their phone or their iPad or their MBT. I mean, you could use the tools, the location tools, and the chat tool that you have. You don't necessarily have to watch the video. You can get the sense of what's going on, close the video window so it's not right in your face, and just, if something changes, if you need it, you can open it back up and look at it. Just like if you get disconnected from your caller, or you have to hang up with them because you have another call coming in that's a higher priority, or you're the only one in the room and you have to answer that other 911 line and help's already going, you can always call them back. So yeah, you can just open the video, close the video. If it's something that you don't need to watch or don't want to watch, it's there, and you have that opportunity. We've kind of taken that soft approach here. Watch the video if you can. If something's going on and you can't watch the video, send that link to the responders, let them know it's there, and do your job as best you can. And that's what I expect from people, and I think that's what we should expect from everybody.
Awesome. Hell yeah, man. Very nice. Very well put. And again, thank you so much for being on and not only sharing this story, but also sharing your story. And I just love hearing the passion in your voice for this profession, but also for all the folks that you work with. So thank you for being, one of the great ones, man. There's need more people in leadership like you. So thank you.
Hey, thank you. I tell my people, all I do is make sure they get paychecks. I'm the paper pusher. I make sure they get paychecks, and I make stupid rules that, everybody thinks are hard to follow sometimes. And we all know how that is as telecommunicators. But the people on the front lines, the people that answer the phone every day, they're doing the hard work. They're keeping their center running, and they're keeping their public safety partners going in the right direction.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, man, for being on. And I'll be right back here with you in just one moment. For those who are watching, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast. If you're looking for any bonus content and you want to help support us, you can check us out, and that is patreon.com/WTT Podcast. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital, Rapid Deploy, as well as Carbyne. And this was an exclusive Carbyne episode. Thank you so very much. And again, to patrons, thank you for everything. This can be seen on Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube, and then can be heard 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.